Good morning, everyone. I'm Amber Hefner, and I am the Executive Director of Illinois Digital Educators Alliance. And I'm excited to be here with you and the eLuma team today. A big shout out to the eLuma team for working with us on providing these sessions today on really what was quite a short notice. A week ago, we had our open virtual coaching office hours in which a special education teacher joined us and was sharing how she felt kind of left out of the resources that were available. So we were able to connect with Kevin Rubenstein, a director of special education here in Illinois, who put us in contact with the eLuma team, and they stepped up so quickly right away and said, yes, let's make this happen. And a week later, here we are offering these series and hope to be able to offer you some resources and support in meeting the needs of your students. So a big thank you to Dr. Rubenstein and the eLuma team. So today we are in our session for speech educators. And I'm excited to introduce our presenter for this session, Tiffany Voigt. Tiffany is the Director of Services at eLuma Online Therapy. She has provided speech and language pathology services in a variety of settings, including schools, telepractice, private practice, and acute and long-term care over the past 19 years. Tiffany became a speech and language pathologist after seeing the importance of communication skills for success in school, work, and social engagement at all age levels. With her experience in a variety of settings, Tiffany has learned the skills and the importance of communication in preparing engaging and effective activities for success in online therapy. Tiffany enjoys spending time with her husband and twin daughters, traveling, gardening, and cooking. Tiffany, thank you so much for being here today and sharing your expertise with us, and I will share it with you now.
Thank you so much, Amber. It's really exciting to be here and offer some resources and strategies for all of our fellow speech educators out there. So we're going to talk about online therapy strategies for speech today. So the first thought that might come to mind when you're thinking about online speech strategies really is, what now? That's the big question when everybody is looking at this new modality. You might be feeling nervous, maybe excited, confused, and probably definitely overwhelmed. There is a lot of information out there, and there are a lot of resources. So we have to think about how we can get ourselves in a place where we have lots of resources that we know how to use and utilize for our students so that we can do the best job that we can. Online speech therapy is really exciting because our possibilities really are endless of what we can provide to our students. So what now? We're going to jump into that. You all have got this and you can do this. So what we're going to talk about today is first, some of our technology tips and tricks that are really essential for online therapy. We're going to talk about proactive communication and managing behaviors because those can be new challenges and need to be done in a little bit of a different way sometimes when we're looking at an online strategy. We're also going to then look at building successful lesson plans for speech therapy, and we're going to talk about using physical resources and digital resources because we want to utilize what you already have as well as some new materials you might have. So first, we need to talk about technology, because if we're doing online speech therapy, we have to have the right technology to set ourselves up for success. So I've divided into things that you as a clinician are going to need and also things that your student is going to need. So as a clinician, having a computer is going to be your best device to have lots of options and to really navigate this online world. You're going to need internet, of course. When we look at internet, we just want to make sure that we have a really strong internet connection. And in that, if you have the ability to hardwire your computer to your modem using an Ethernet cord, that's really the best. We know that when we're using Wi-Fi, that signal and strength can kind of go up and down depending on how many other people are using it as well. So if we can get a really strong internet connection with Ethernet, that really is the gold standard. Sometimes you have to look at your upload and your download speeds as well and check and see what your internet is doing so that you can host these online sessions also. You're going to need a webcam because you're going to want your students to see you. And then a headset is really also important. You don't absolutely have to have one, but what a headset is going to do for you is it's going to block out some of that background noise for you. It's also going to let you hear your student much easier. It cuts out some of the background noise, and a headset with a microphone is going to let your student hear you as well. Optional tools that you can use for technology are things like document cameras. Document cameras come in really useful when you're looking at some of your physical materials that you already have. And lots of platforms also let you use iPads, iPhones, and mirror those into your classroom. So if you have those tools, you can share apps from your iPad right into your classroom, depending on what platform that you're using. So also good resources for things that you already have. Technology from the student standpoint is they're going to need a computer. Online sessions can happen if they're using iPads and tablets as well, but depending on what platform and tool that they're using, if there's annotation features and drawing and different tools that you want to use, not all of those resources from a technology standpoint allow that to happen. So if they can have access to a computer, that is the best because it's going to give them the most interaction with your computer and the platform that you're using. They, of course, need internet as well. They're going to need a webcam because you absolutely want to see what your students are doing because you're going to want to see those nonverbals. You're going to want to see if they're still sitting up at the desk, if they need some verbal cues. And we know that there's a lot of cueing that happens from body language with students, so we want to make sure that we can see that. If your student has access to a headset, that's also really helpful. Again, it's going to cut down any of the background noise in the environment that they're in, and that microphone will allow them and you to hear each other much better. When you're looking at headsets, they can also use earbuds. Most cell phones that everyone has have a set of earbuds that come with them, and those will work too. So it doesn't have to be anything fancy or expensive. We can utilize the tools that our students and families already have. One other thing that might be helpful for your student is an external mouse, especially for some of our students who are a little bit younger and might not utilize a trackpad on a computer very well, or maybe have some fine motor needs. An external mouse can be really helpful for them to interact a little bit more efficiently and effectively. So it might just be something you can look at and ask parents if they have when you're doing these sessions online. So we want to talk about your therapy space a little bit. So I have a picture here of a therapy space. This one actually happens to be mine. I happen to have a second monitor. I have my laptop. I have an external keyboard and a mouse, and then I have my chair. When you're looking at where you're going to set up your therapy space, you're going to want to make sure that your desk is large enough for all of your materials because you're going to want to be able to have easy and quick access to everything that you're using without it either getting in your way or falling off the edge. We want it to be large enough so that you can grab what you need. You can take notes on paper if you need as well. When you're looking at a chair, you're going to want to look for something comfortable and adjustable. Body mechanics are really important, so if we can get those knees and hips at a 90-degree angle, it's going to be most comfortable, especially when you're looking at having sessions back to back. You're going to want to be comfortable when you're doing these online sessions. Your therapy space should be quiet and private. That's going to help your student hear you and them to hear you as well. And also when you set up your therapy space, make sure you pay attention to the lighting that you are working with. We always want a window or a lamp to be placed somewhere in front of you. The reason for that is if you put a window behind you, what happens is the space gets really bright, but it casts a shadow on your face and your students can't actually see you very well. And the same thing for your students. You want to make sure that they don't have their back to a window or a door or a main light source. If they do, and that's the only option, if you put a lamp in front of your computer, that will be enough to shine some light on your face so that they can see you, and also so that you can see them. The camera in your therapy space can either be built into your computer, or if you have an external webcam, that works great as well. So we just want to make sure that we can adjust that camera to see our entire face. Our headset, also you want to make sure that it's comfortable for you and the correct size, especially if you're working with really small children. You want those headsets to fit them so that they don't fall off and that the microphone is close to their mouth. And make sure to make your space something that makes you feel happy, that you're excited in. When we're in school buildings, we all have fun spaces and bulletin boards with really exciting things on it and student work. Make sure your space is like that at home too, because you're going to spend some time in here, so you want it to be a place you want to be. And in that therapy space, make sure that you're taking care of yourself. Like I said, if you're doing sessions back to back, you're going to need to stand up frequently. You might want to do some yoga or some stretches just for a minute or two between those sessions to kind of give your body a break and get it into a new place and a new location just for a little bit. And again, schedule those breaks in during the day because you want to make sure that you're taking care of yourself as well. So once you have your technology all set up and you schedule things with your student, it's a really great idea to do a technology pre-check. So you're going to want to schedule this before your first therapy session. It can be a different day. It can maybe be 10 minutes before that session starts. But this is really important because this allows you to do some basic troubleshooting, especially with the camera and the microphone and the speakers or the headsets. Why this is important is because if you want to deliver 30 minutes of services to your student, you don't want to have to spend 15 trying to get their camera to turn on or giving some of those instructions. We want all that set up so that we can deliver the full minutes to our students. It also gives you the option to check on your students' therapy space because maybe we need to do some adjustments. Maybe they do have their back to a window. Maybe they are in a room with siblings and there's lots going on and it's really noisy and it's hard to hear them and they have a hard time hearing you. So this gives us the opportunity to make sure that our technology works and that our students' therapy space is going to be really effective and conducive to their learning. All right, so we're going to move on into communication and behavior management when we're looking at online sessions. This is going to look a little bit different than you might be used to. So with communication, when you're working in an online therapy setting, more is always better than too little or just enough. There are lots of questions that come up. So we want to make sure that we're over communicating so everybody knows what needs to be done. We want to be proactive with that communication, reach out before those questions happen, and make sure that our parents know what is coming because that's going to help them be ready so that your sessions are effective. We also want to have regular contact with our parents. It can be by phone, email, text messages, either before or after your sessions. You can also talk to parents right in that online classroom, but we want to make sure that parents feel supported and that they know how to contact us. With that contact, you are going to want to make sure that you have clear expectations and boundaries for the communication. If you are going to give a family your cell phone number, you're going to want them to know that you have some boundaries because you're not going to want to get those midnight phone calls, text messages at all hours of the day and the night. You want to make sure that they know when they can contact you. It's a great idea if you can set up office hours and send those to your parents because then they know exactly when you're available and they'll kind of stick to those boundaries a little bit better for you as well. One other option that you can do is if you don't want to give out your phone number to parents, your direct phone number, you can look at things like Google Voice and you can set up a Google Voice number where it allows you to choose any number that you want and it will ring to your phone, but won't actually give out your actual phone number. Reminders are really important in online therapy. When students are at home, families get busy, parents get busy, and time sometimes slips by. So we want to make sure that we're sending out reminders to our parents that they have speech. So it's a great idea. You can send out an email in the morning and blind copy all of your students, just reminding them, hey, I'm excited to see you for speech today. I'll see you soon. You can have calendar reminders sent out, or I always encourage parents to set up reminders on their phones or alarms or different things like that to make sure that they're logged in and ready to go during your therapy session so that you're getting the most out of that session and you're able to provide them with all the minutes. When you're starting online therapy with students and parents who haven't done this before, it's really important to make sure that you listen to parents and answer their questions. They're going to have a lot of questions about how this looks because it is a different modality. They're going to have concerns about this being effective for their student if you're not in the same room. And so we want to make sure that we're acknowledging those concerns and worries for parents. And it's okay to say that this is a new modality and that you don't have the answer for some of those questions, but that you're going to work through it together or you're going to find them an answer. It's always okay to say that, and parents are really receptive to that information too. This is also really a great opportunity for us to really build some parent skills, to work on parent coaching and carryover, because we might have more communication with our parents right now than we typically do when we're in a school setting. So that's a silver lining to some of this, is that we can really get our parents actively involved in the skills that we're working on and building. A lot of questions that come up around behavior management are, what do I do with students that might have behaviors or decreased attention? What am I going to do? What if they can't attend? So one of the most important things that you're going to want to do is to set up your expectations up front. If your students already have plans in place for behavior management, you don't have to reinvent the wheel here. You can continue using what's already in place. You can continue using their reinforcers that they already use. We don't have to create new things. We can carry on with what we have, and that's going to be more beneficial for our students because they know what those expectations are already. We can still use visual schedules, which is a great idea. We can put those in the side of our classroom. They're predictable for students to help manage some of the behaviors that might come up with some students. We still set classroom rules in online speech therapy. Just as you would have class rules in your room at a school, you're going to do that here as well. We're going to take turns. We're going to ask each other questions. We're going to be respectful of each other. Make sure to set those rules here as well so students know those guidelines and boundaries that they need to be in. Again, you can still use reinforcers and reward systems. Maybe there's something at home that the student really enjoys doing that it hasn't been accessible at school, and so you might use that as a new reward system for them. One thing I always like to do is to set a star activity for my students. So if there's a game that they really like to play or an activity that we've done that they love, maybe that is something that they get to choose, and if they work hard our entire session, we get to spend the last 2 or 3 minutes doing their star activity and give them some responsibility in setting up the lesson plan and giving them some responsibility behind their behavior and their choices as well. Again, we can involve parents here. We want our parents to be involved in these sessions. We need them to be there to support their student in what their needs are. And so we're going to involve them in behavior management as well and provide them with some coaching and cueing strategies as needed. You can still have great rapport in online therapy. This is a question that comes up all the time and is a big concern for lots of people. But the great thing is, if you've already been seeing your students in face-to-face sessions, that rapport has already been built, so you can carry that over. But you can still build really great rapport with students in an online therapy session. And one note that is a pleasant surprise is because students are very technology smart, they might really love this strategy and this modality of online therapy compared to face-to-face, and you might actually see improved attention with some of your students and decreased behaviors because this is something that they really enjoy and that they're really, really excited about. So it's always exciting to know that some of those pleasant surprises pop up here in our online sessions. All right, so lesson plans and resources. The first thing you need to do is just stay calm about online lesson plans, because the great thing here is you already know what to do. You are already a great speech therapist. You know how to address goals. You know what activities you want to do with your students and what those outcomes look like. So since you know what to do, we just have to be creative in changing up how we're going to present that to students. One of the most important things in online therapy is really to be prepared. So just as you would if your student was in the same room with you, you're going to want to be prepared and have all your materials ready. And any backup activities you might want to have ready too, just like we do for our students. and then you're going to want to practice. When I started online therapy, my husband completed lots and lots of therapy sessions in speech. I wanted to practice, I wanted to present things, so I made him practice. I practiced with my friends, I practiced with my nieces, just to know how I'm going to present things and get more familiar with it. We're going to follow the students' goals still for online lesson plans. If their IEPs haven't changed, we're not changing goals. We're just changing the way we present materials to our students. So we're going to follow those goals that they already have. You can still create themes in online therapy, and you can still use the curriculum, which is really exciting because some of these things you already have and they're already created for you. So we just need to adjust how we're going to present them. You can still create libraries of activities and utilize shareable folders. So if you have a Google Drive or any of those other shareable drives, you can still have folders in there for articulation, for pragmatics, for language, for fluency, whatever you need. And you can go into those folders and have them accessible. So if you need to grab something else during a therapy session, you know exactly where it is and it's organized. So your lesson plan and your session structure are going to look really similar to what you're already doing. So you're going to do a greeting when your student comes into your classroom and review those classroom rules. You're going to present your activities. You're going to provide your students with feedback. You're going to adjust the presentation of the activities that you're giving to students, and you're going to adjust that cueing depending on what they need. The sessions are going to look similar to what you're already doing and what you've already done. You're going to continue to document on the data for your students, document SOAP notes that you already know how to do. The one thing to be aware of with online sessions is that you might have to be a little bit more over-exaggerated with some of your nonverbals because your students aren't going to see your full body. Sometimes your facial expressions and any part of your body that's in your webcam might have to be just a little bit more exaggerated for some of our students, and you might have to be a little bit more animated with some of them just to start. One helpful tool that I always found useful for students who are brand new to online therapy as well is to use your first session as a getting to know session. So this is a session where you can give your students a tour of the online classrooms. If you have annotation tools, you can give them a tour and practice on how to use those tools for the first half of the session to get them familiar and comfortable if this is something new for them as well. But it also helps them know how to use the tools. So when you're presenting activities, it runs smoothly for you and the student. And then again, you're still gonna have fun in your therapy sessions like you would. So when we talk about resources and materials, we can categorize them into two different categories here. So we have physical materials, anything that can be physically touched and manipulated. And then we have our digital materials, which is the electronic media. So anything that we can put on a computer, a tablet, or a device. So physical materials, this is always a big question because yes, you can still use physical materials. Things that you already have, we can utilize here in a therapy session. So we can use our flashcards, we can use toys, all of our manipulatives, books that we own. Online therapy was built for barrier games because it's a natural barrier. So we can continue to use those really successfully with our students. This is a great opportunity for puppets because you can do fun puppet shows with students. And then we can still do games that require some physical movement. So things like charades, I Spy, all of those things we can still utilize in what we're doing. We're just going to present them, again, a little bit differently. We can still do art projects with our students. It's a great idea if you want to do something to talk with a parent and say, hey, do you have access to glue and paper and markers? And can you have them ready for our next therapy session? And you can do following direction activities and still do fun art projects with your students to get them some hands-on manipulatives as well. One of the greatest things that you can do is use what your students already have at their homes. I always do some first session homework with my students and have them make a list of toys and activities that they have at their house that they really like to do. Because if I have Legos and my student has Legos, we can use those at the same time together and utilize what they already have. So if our students need those manipulatives and hands-on activities, we can still do that. So when you're presenting physical materials online, it's going to look a little bit different. So first of all, you're going to want to be prepared and have all of your materials within arm's reach, because you always want to stay in your camera frame. You don't want to be leaning down and you kind of disappear from the frame to reach something or pick something up, because it can be a little bit distracting for students and it can interrupt the flow of your session. So if you have everything at arm's length so you can stay in your camera frame, that's optimal. Pay attention to the size of the materials that you're using. So you're going to want to make sure that nothing is larger than your head, and it's something that fits into your camera frame, because you want your student to see the entirety of what you're presenting to them most of the time. And so if it's too big, you kind of have to move it up and down and side to side, which can feel a little bit disjointed. The placement of activities on your screen when you're holding up materials that you have, if you're doing flashcards, you want to make sure that you place them beside your face. So you'll see your face and your flashcard or your manipulative or your toy or whatever you're using right next to your face, because then you can maintain eye contact with your web camera. And most importantly, then we don't cover our face, because then our students can still see our nonverbal cues. They can still see our mouth if we're working on articulation skills, and it's a little bit less distracting for them, and we can support them better with what we're doing with our nonverbals. Sometimes you might have to zoom in, and to zoom in when you're in an online session, all you have to do is lean into your camera and you can zoom it in, or you can zoom in on a flashcard or something that you have as well. This is a great use of a document camera when you're looking at physical activities. If you have a document camera, you can place those on your desk right beside you instead of having to hold them up beside your face. If you don't have a document camera, another great resource is to use your phone or an iPad. You can set that up and log in separately into your classroom and use those things as a document camera. You can still zoom in on things that way. You can still utilize physical books that you have as well. So it's just a way we can be a little bit more creative if we don't have a document camera with the tools that we do have. And then if we have those physical materials, we can mirror the materials that your students do have. So when I mentioned Legos earlier, I can build something and do it's my turn, and then I can say it's your turn, and then we can do it together. So we can utilize all of those physical materials. Some examples of things that I've done, we have done snowball fights in therapy, and so we've crumpled up pieces of paper and we have thrown them at each other's camera to do snowball fights. I've had kids throw those big fuzzy craft palms at their computer, and I've had a bucket on my side and pom-poms on my side, so they're throwing them into the bucket and things like that. Kids really enjoy that, and even if it's not in the space and we're doing it differently, they still think it's pretty fun. So just make sure that whatever you're throwing at your computer, of course, is soft and light. We don't want to damage anything. So with digital materials, our options are really endless here. There are activities and materials everywhere. There are digital books. There are lots and lots of websites that have paid options, but also free options. Most of you are probably familiar with Teachers Pay Teachers. They have great resources that you can use. If you don't know what boom cards are, I highly suggest you look into those. They have wonderful, wonderful activities. But there's a lot of online games that are free that you can utilize. If you have a classroom that also has a whiteboard, you can utilize that whiteboard. You can still do drawing activities in there. You can put your visual schedules in there. You can do scaffolding, all kinds of options, just as you would write on a whiteboard in your classroom. And then you can create interactive worksheets. So for things like Adobe, if you create a worksheet in Adobe, you can use the annotation tools in there, and you can write on those, your student can write on those, and you can still interact that way. One other great place to find digital materials are in Facebook communities. There are Facebook groups out there dedicated just to online therapy, and some that are dedicated to just materials as well. So make sure you utilize those, because there are tons of free options out there. Just make sure when you're looking for your options and what you have to pay attention to copyright things, because we want to make sure we're not copywriting anything. But you can also reach out to colleagues on this too, because colleagues often have really great ideas. When you're presenting digital materials, it's really important, again, to be prepared. Have all of your materials open. So you're going to want to have them pulled up on your desktop, or if they're in different browser windows, have all of those open. So as you complete them, you can just close them. If you don't want to have everything open on your computer, you can create a document with just links to everything that you want to open, and that does help save on some bandwidth. The size that you're presenting to students can obviously be easily adjusted by changing the size of your screen, but just make sure the activities are in the middle of your screen, and make sure you're aware of other things that are open on your screen, other tabs, because when you're sharing a screen, anything that's open on your computer, other people can see. So just be cognizant that you only have therapy things open on your computer when you're working with students. When you're screen sharing, look for a platform, if you can, that allows you to see the student and the student to see you, because we still want to see each other's nonverbals and cues. We also want to see what our student is up to sometimes to make sure that they're engaged and paying attention, so that's a cue to us if we need to make some changes. You're going to want to present your activities slowly when you move between pages. So if you're doing a book with a student, you're going to want to turn those pages slowly and not just scroll too fast, because sometimes it's hard to keep up when someone is scrolling through things really quickly. Know how to easily access your annotation and your drawing tools, because this is really going to help you feel confident and really have smooth presentation to your students. We also want to know how to regain access of our screen control when we're sharing control with our students. They can get really excited about things, and so sometimes, depending what platform you're using, if they don't take their hand off the mouse and stop moving it, you can't get control back. So it's important to know what hotkeys and keystrokes can take that control back from students. Or you can also use verbal cues. For my students, if they were starting to get really engaged with the mouse and I needed it back so we can refocus, I would say hands up, and they would have to show me their hands in the webcam, and that would be enough to get them to stop with the mouse, and then I can take control back. So where are all these digital resources? So Google searches are great ways to find them. Facebook groups, lots of companies have resources that you can purchase, or some are free. There are tons of speech blogs out there, and they're posting ideas and resources as well. You can always use YouTube videos. Pinterest is always a great place to find things, but also check in on with your state and ASHA on those websites. They sometimes have really great resources. And then again, collaborate with your colleagues. eLuma doesn't endorse any of the resources I'm going to show you now and that you're going to have access to, but just want to make sure that you know that there's lots of things out here. So I've divided this into a couple different categories here for you. So there's a lot of speech websites on there that have activities and lots of ideas for you. So utilize any of those great speech websites. SLP Summit is on the list. They do free continuing education resources as well, so that's a great one to look at. There's lots of websites for books and reading that you probably are aware of, but one thing too is always to check your local library, because libraries have those book sharing programs that you can get digital books and you can utilize those too. There are tons of game websites out there. I've listed a few. Pokey.com, C4 Arena actually have Connect 4 games that you can do. The playingcards.io actually has different card games that you can do and make interactive. Jigsaw Planet is great. There are literally puzzles that you can move pieces and do puzzles online. Switch Zoo is a great one. It allows you to pull up an animal, and then you can change the animal's head and his tail. So he could be a rhino with a lion head and a kangaroo tail. Kids really think that's fun. And then Marvel HQ is a website with all of the Marvel characters, and they have anything from matching games to coloring pages where you can design your own Iron Man and print them out or create them into PDFs too. So those are just some fun ones that you can use for reinforcers, but you can also build some of those into your following directions or language activities as well. And then there's lots of academic resources out there as well. This is a just a small list of everything that is out there, but I know a lot of clinicians use PBS Kids, Sesame Street, the Scholastic pages, but that's just another list for you as well as a couple social and emotional sites that have some resources on there too. And the last thing that I'll lead you with is a good Dr. Seuss quote. And you will succeed, yes indeed, 98.75% guaranteed. We know this is a new modality and we just have to think creatively out of the box and how we're going to present things for students, but students really love this. So that is the great thing about online therapy, is that we can reach students just as we did before. We're just going to be more creative in how we do it. So thank you all for attending. If anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to answer any of those.
Tiffany, thank you so much. Oh my goodness. Again, I just tweeted out that I'm pretty sure I'm going to have an entire notebook full of ideas and resources by the end of the day today. So thank you so much for everything that you have shared. Absolutely incredible. As Tiffany mentioned, if anyone on right now has questions, please feel free to put those in the chat window. Nancy is asking about a copy of the slides, and yes, thank you for asking that, Nancy. We will be sending out a recording and the slides and any resources that have been shared as well. Tiffany, someone asked, Krista asked, how do you use Adobe to annotate and give screen control? What platform do you use?
Mm-hmm. So the platform that I use and that we use here at eLuma is Zoom. And so if you're using Zoom, when you use your screen share, there's a button at the top that actually says annotate. And when you click on that, it has lots of options from pencils to highlighters. It has pointers and stamps, and you can change the color and the width of all of those things as well. So you can annotate using those tools built right into the Zoom platform. Lots of the other platforms also have some of those annotation tools built in. In Adobe, I would always open worksheets in Adobe, and then you can still type on those worksheets. If you look in the menu in Adobe, there's also options for highlighting things or pointers and different other annotation tools built into that. You just have to open the side menu, and then they usually pop up on the side for you.
Thanks, Tiffany. Krista is saying that she's currently using Zoom, but she hasn't seen that option to annotate. I don't know if it's an option for you to screen share and show that or not, or if you're aware if that annotation feature is specific to a certain plan that you have in Zoom.
Mm-hmm. You know, that's a really great question. I don't know about all the different levels of Zoom. Sometimes I do know that when I have opened it, my annotation bar has disappeared, and so it's opened in another window. I know sometimes on Mac computers, they'll open another window, or mine has opened behind multiple web browsers that I have open, so that's always a good place to check. But typically when I click on share my screen, that toolbar will pop up for me. But Zoom has pretty good customer support too. So if you're using that, you might want to contact them.
Yeah, Mindy just put, thank you so much, Tiffany. Mindy just put the link in to the support Zoom option specifically for annotation. So it is something that does need to be enabled. And thank you, Mindy, for putting that link in there. Tiffany, another question that was asked was, do you have any advice on mirroring your iPad to a Windows computer?
Those are really great tech questions. It would probably
questions.
Yes, it would depend on what platform you're using. So I don't know if I have a really great answer for that. I know in some of the online platforms like Zoom, when you share your screen, you can choose your iPad instead of using, instead of sharing just your regular desktop. But if your classroom that you're using doesn't have that feature to mirror, that would be a great opportunity to use your document camera, or like I said, to use either a phone or a different device that you could actually use instead. I actually saw something last week on a Facebook page where an SLP took a cardboard box and cut a hole in the top and laid their phone on the top so the camera would look down, and then they would slide their materials inside the box as their kind of cheap homemade document camera, and it worked really well because then they just had to log in with their phone to whatever classroom that they were using.
That's a great suggestion. Thank you. And Barbara, I'm also putting a link in here as well to our ideaillinois.org calendar of upcoming events. And we actually are providing specific content areas, Apple, Google, Microsoft, every week. And we have some upcoming Apple sessions and utilizing the iPad for e-learning that you might want to join and be able to actually ask some of those more technical questions directly related to those targeted devices. So that is ideaillinois.org/calendar, and it's in the chat window as well. One more quick question, Tiffany, that we had were some Connie's asking about the 2 social emotional links.
Mm-hmm.
Can you just mention those again, please?
Sure. I can go back in the slides here. So there's Social Express and Centervention.com. I know right now they're actually providing some free resources and some different tools and activities right now during the COVID situation. And so there's lots of social and emotional learning things on there. There's also different strategies for students needing social interaction outside of classrooms that you can utilize when they're at home, and actually give resources to parents as well. Is there a specific question about those in general, or did she just want to see them?
Yep, I believe that you answered it. I think she wanted to see them, so that is perfect. Could you go back one more slide, Tiffany?
Sure.
They are asking to see the other resource page as well. Thank you so much.
And just so everybody knows, this is really a limited number of resources out there. There are just tons and tons and tons of resources. The ones that I pulled up are ones that just have lots of interactive games and have easily accessible resources where you don't have to dig too deep to find them.
Great, thank you so much. And just as a reminder, we will be sharing out the recording and Tiffany's slide presentation that will have those available for you as well later today or early next week. So Tiffany, again, thank you so much. We really appreciate your time and your expertise, learning so much. It's really definitely an exciting day. One of the things that I wanted to also mention, I did put a link in the chat window for professional development hours that we are offering for the educators that are attending the sessions today. So you can earn up to 1 hour. These are specific requirements for Illinois educators. If you are outside the state of Illinois, feel free to use them as well. You're more than welcome to do so. Hopefully your state does reciprocate and accept those professional development hours. But for Illinois educators in particular, the bit.ly link is in the chat window for you to fill out. It will auto send you the evidence of completion that you need. Beth is asking if the resources are going to be emailed or on the website. Actually, they will be both. So if you did register with your email, it will be sent out to those that we have their email addresses, but we will also, again, thank you to eLuma for allowing us the opportunity to post this on our website as well. Lori is asking if someone can't attend the last webinar, if they will still be able to receive that. And Lori, yes, if you have registered for that, even though you can't attend, we will be sending the resources out to anyone who is registered. All right, and Beth, you're very welcome. We're so happy that we can offer this time to support you and the work that you're doing on the front lines. So really the thank you goes out to all of you educators as well for all the hard work that you're putting in. We appreciate it greatly, and Tiffany and the eLuma team, thank you again so much. And we'll see you here again for round 3 in a few minutes.